Do you own or plan to buy one of these Ficus Lyrata anytime soon? Also known as the Fiddle Leaf Fig? Well, these beautiful, architecturally stunning plants are extremely popular right now. But for all of its popularity, it is also one of the most challenging plants to care for. So, in today's video, I plan to give you 5 quick tips to help ensure your Fiddle Leaf Fig thrives in your home. Hello and welcome. I am Trish and this is Trish Talks. And on this channel, I cover all things related to decorating and maintaining your home and garden. And as I've already mentioned, we're going to be talking about how to care for these beautiful Fiddle Leaf Figs today. So let's get started. Care tip number 1, lighting. Bright, indirect lighting. When bringing your Fiddle Leaf Fig home, one of the most important care tips I can offer you is to make sure that you're placing your fig in front of a window or a door that offers bright, indirect light. I can't stress that enough. These plants love bright light. They don't want direct sun because that will burn their leaves, but they want bright light, and they want it for 6 to 8 hours if you can give it to them. So know that before you're purchasing it, and if you already have them in your home, find that source. These are my east-facing patio doors. My Fiddle Leaf Fig plant gets about 2 hours of direct morning sun and 6 to 8 hours of bright indirect sun, depending on the season. When I'm receiving direct sunlight, I'll use the curtains to diffuse the light. Once the sun is high above my home, I'll open the curtain and let the bright indirect light shine in. If you have a room that receives full light from a south or west facing window, pull it back off the window a bit because the direct sunlight might burn the leaves. For those of you who don't live in a home that has either of these conditions, I'll have a tip for you later on in the video. Every couple of weeks, make sure you rotate your plant to ensure that each side is getting enough light. And this will also help it to grow nice and straight. But although it's recommended that you rotate the plant, it is not recommended that you move the plant. And what I mean by that is move it from one spot in your house to a totally different location. Once a Fiddle Leaf Fig gets very comfortable in its spot, it wants to remain there. And you'll know it's comfortable there because you'll start to see leaves growing and it just looking healthy and thriving. If you need to move it, prepare yourself because the Fiddle Leaf Fig will go through a period of shock. And in some cases, you'll lose the plant. So think long and hard before you move your Fiddle Leaf Fig. Care tip number 2, watering. Now, before you water your plant, and this is all plants, stick your finger in it about 2 inches, see if it's dry, and if it is, give it some water. Fiddle Leaf Figs like to be watered thoroughly, but they don't need to be watered often. So they do like to dry out, so just water it, make sure that it's coated, and then leave it alone. If you're not confident in your ability to check the moisture levels in your plant, you can always go out and buy one of those soil moisture level testers. My soil monitor right now shows this fig at 15%, which means it's really dry. Fiddle Leaf Figs like to almost dry out between watering. If the plant is small enough, like my Phyllis over here, place it in the sink and shower it with water for a few minutes. Then let it drain for 30 minutes or so. If that's not possible because the plants are too large, like Charlie and Gordon over here, then water them until you see water draining from the bottom. Now it's recommended that you keep your Fiddle Leaf Figs away from drafts and air conditioning vents. But in my case, these patio doors used to be windows. So I actually have my Fiddle Leaf Figs right next to a vent. And that just simply means that I need to water my plants a little bit more often than someone who doesn't have their plants next to a vent. But even with the vent right here, my plants still thrive in this area because of the bright indirect sunlight. Care tip number 3, fertilizing. In the spring, I fertilized my figs with slow release fertilizer sticks. These are old school. My mom used to use these all the time, and they've always worked. And they typically last about 2 months. I also use the over-the-counter Miracle Grow fertilizer. I'll put a teaspoon of this in some water, and then I'll water some of the plants with this as well. I also take the time to clean the leaves off, because the leaves are so big, they collect a lot of dust. And you don't want anything getting in the way of that sunlight hitting this beautiful plant and feeding it the way it needs to be fed. So once a month, clean your leaves off. It's a little bit of work, but well worth the effort. Now, if you get the first 3 tips that I've just given you right, the lighting, the watering, and the fertilizing, you can see 2 to 3 feet of growth in your Fiddle Leaf Fig this growing season. Which leads me to my next care tip. Care tip number 4, propagating. I propagate my Fiddle Leaf Figs when they've grown significantly. They're at least 4 to 5 feet tall and can benefit from maybe some of the branches being cut off the top. I know I've had to cut this one, Gordon, off a couple of times because it's now hitting my ceiling. So there's a benefit to propagating. You can keep your plant in your space a little longer, but then you can also create new plants because you've cut those branches off, you set them in water, and now they're going to grow roots and create a new plant for you. And it's relatively easy to propagate your plant. Cut off the branch you want to propagate. Clean the stem off up to about 8 inches, then stick it in water. You can also do this with individual leaves. Clean your water at least twice a week. Place the cuttings in bright indirect light, and in about 6 to 8 weeks, you'll see some new roots. You can then take the cuttings and place them in a pot with some potting mix. Now, if you want your Fiddle Leaf Fig to look fuller, you'll do what we call notching. Find what we call the node. The node is the thickest point of the tree's trunk located between leaves. You'll take that clean shear and cut 1/8 of an inch deep at a 45-degree angle just above the node. Right after you do that, you'll see some sap come out, and that's perfect. Dry the sap off and wait. In about 6 to 8 weeks, you should see a new leaf forming in that spot. Care tip number 5, repotting. If you start seeing roots coming out of the bottom or the top of your plant, it's time to repot your plant. Now, and I say that hesitantly because Fiddle Leaf Figs really do like to be root bound. They're like little babies. They like to stay swaddled as long as they possibly can. But that's the sign of the roots just coming out of the pot it's when you need to make the change. And this is a period of shock for the plant, so you want to be delicate with this approach. Choose a pot that's only the next size up. People tend to want to get a really big pot so they don't have to repot as often, but your Fiddle Leaf Fig won't like that. Loosen the plant out of its current pot, tease out the roots, and place it in the new pot. To repot your plant, use a general potting mix. I add a little perlite to my mix to ensure good drainage. And water thoroughly. Now, if you see some damp or soggy roots at the bottom when you pull the plant out, you're going to have to do a little bit more work because you don't want to repot that plant with those soggy roots. That will only lead to root rot. So you want to clean the soil from around the roots and examine the roots. If they don't look like they can be saved by just letting them air out for a few hours, then go ahead and cut them off. Then go ahead and repot your plant and really crush your fingers at that point. Bonus tip. So earlier in the conversation, we were talking about lighting, and we talked about instances where people had plenty of bright indirect light or direct light where you could filter that light by using sheer curtains. But there are many of you who don't get enough light no matter where you put your plant in your home. And for you, my tip is this: look at plant grow lights. I use them in this window because the lighting is not as bright as the plants would like, especially during the winter months. And here in this lamp, I've also replaced my regular light bulb with a full spectrum grow bulb so I can occasionally provide more lights to these plants in this corner. Now know I'll set the light down on the floor about 3 feet away from the plant, just to ensure that I don't burn their leaves. I'll link a few of the grow lights that I've used in the past in the description box below so that you can determine if it's an option for you. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you found these tips helpful. If you apply them, I am certain that not only will you be able to care for your fiddle leaf figs, but you'll be able to watch them thrive. And if you got anything out of this video today, please consider subscribing to my channel, giving me a thumbs up, and leave a comment in the section below. That will help me grow my channel. And as always, I thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.